7A Crime Solvers presentation. So do I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Please join us for a moment of silence. And Councilmember Cywilling, will you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, right now is general public comment time. We have one person signed up. Where's the sheet? Mr. Joshua Fuentes, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Ms. Connor will keep the time.
My name is Joshua Fuentes, and I live at 9231 Cynthia Street. All right, so I prepared a statement. I'm not great at public speaking, so forgive me. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today regarding a proposal that would greatly benefit homeowners in our community. I respectfully request your consideration to expand the allowable driveway width from 20 feet to 24 feet. This adjustment has become increasingly necessary following the recent mandate restricting commercial vehicles parking on public streets, which has unintentionally led to a greater demand for off-street parking. Other than the commercial vehicles, what else also needs to be accounted for is the size of vehicles getting bigger, such as full-size trucks, oversized minivans, and Cybertrucks. Currently, many homeowners are struggling to accommodate multiple vehicles, resulting in cars encroaching onto sidewalks and creating accessibility and safety concerns. By allowing wider driveways, we can help ensure that walkways remain clear for pedestrians, including children, seniors, and individuals with disabilities. Beyond improving safety, this expansion would offer several key benefits, including increased property value and curb appeal, reduced street congestion, better compliance with parking regulations. While it's understood that an increase in paved surfaces area may have an effect on stormwater runoff, the overall impact of this modest expansion is expected to be minimal. In fact, many modern driveways, materials, and drainage solutions can help mitigate runoff, ensuring that this adjustment does not place a significant burden on the city's drainage infrastructure. With proper guidelines in place, homeowners can implement simple and effective measures. I appreciate your time in considering this proposal, which I believe will create a safer, more practical, and aesthetically pleasing environment for our residents. Thank you for your leadership and your consideration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Is there anyone else who's not signed up who would still like to make public comment? Seeing no one, we will move on. We have presentations. Our first presentation is for Beat Hunger Day, which we will be presenting to Mr. Ahmed, the Humanity First Community Outreach Ambassador. Whereas, according to the USDA in 2023, 47.4 million people in the United States, including 7.2 million children, are in food insecure households and are battling hunger. Whereas 1,580 people in the Manassas Park experience food insecurity, and whereas the observance of Beat Hunger Day on March 21st, 2025 is an opportunity to recognize the hunger experienced by our neighbors and to take action by supporting the work of Humanity First USA, a nonprofit that provides vital and critical services by donating food, volunteering, and raising awareness about hunger issues in Prince William County, Virginia, and in 7 other states. And whereas the campaign encourages its supporters to skip lunch on March 21st, 2025, and donate their lunch money to Humanity First USA to feed fellow Americans. And whereas this organization has hundreds of caring volunteers across the U.S. who donate their time, vehicles, gasoline, and energy to deliver hundreds of thousands of meals annually to our fellow citizens in the U.S. And whereas Humanity First USA is consistently partnering with local food banks and pantries, working together to beat hunger. Now therefore I, Alana Mensing, Mayor of the City of Manassas Park, Virginia, do hereby proclaim March 21st, 2025 as the Humanity First USA Beat Hunger Day. I urge every citizen to take time on this day to honor Beat Hunger Day, the people it will serve, and the volunteers who care for them. Our recognition of and involvement in Humanity First USA Beat Hunger Day can enrich our entire community and help combat hunger in America. Mr. Ahmed, would you like to come up?
Thank you so much for your time and for appreciation. So I appreciate you introduced very well. So I want to say thank you so much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a way we can share the website where we can share, we can donate the lunch?
Sure. Could
Or
you
the link
send
and our
me the
website?
website link where we could
Sure.
channel donations?
Yep.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks, Yassi. All right, our next proclamation is for Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, which we will present to Shakira Johnson. Whereas children and adults with developmental disabilities constitute one of America's largest groups of citizens with disabilities, and whereas people with developmental disabilities are valuable members of society and can gain greater independence and productivity through community support and partnership with them, their families, community programs, and elected representatives, who share a common vision of improving the quality of life of all its citizens throughout development of needed resources and opportunities. And whereas Developmental Disability Awareness Month provides the opportunity for all of us to recognize the tremendous value and potential of people with developmental disabilities and to recommit and dedicate ourselves to the empowerment, integration, employment, and inclusion of each one of these citizens. And whereas the Manassas Park City Council is committed to empowering and supporting persons with developmental disabilities to achieve self-determined lifestyles through community-based living arrangements, employment, and other individualized support services. Now, therefore, I, Alana Mensing, Mayor of the City of Manassas Park, Virginia, and on behalf of the Manassas Park City Council, hereby proclaim the month of March 2025 as Developmental Disability Awareness Month. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, the council, for your continued support of supporting individuals with developmental disabilities. We appreciate the partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Now we would like to welcome our school division with the 2026 school budget presentation. Welcome, Dr. Sanders.
Thank you so much. Every time I get up here, this is a different setup than ours, so I never know where to start to touch. So give me a minute to
Sure.
get ourselves organized. There we go. So good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the governing body. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. I am sending warm wishes from our school board chair, Mr. Alexander, who is currently on I-81 and doing his very best to get back here. So if he walks in the door, we will hand it over to him so he can do his opening remarks. But I'll go ahead and get started tonight. So it's a pleasure to be here to share with you the school board approved. I got to turn it on, don't I? Have the same problem. The school board approved FY26 budget. As you all know, our school board budget and all the work that we do in the schools really aligns with our pillars, our strategic plan, and our pillars are reimagining the school experience, building community and connection, and creating safe spaces. And all the work that we do should funnel within that and should be able to support the work of our school system. As I've shared with you before, our strategic plan process happened in 2023, and we've been slowly working towards our goals in that strategic plan. Actually, Mr. Line and I had a conversation today about our public-facing KPI dashboard that we hope to launch in June of 2025, which will allow both the school system and the community to really see those high-level indicators of how we are moving towards the success of our strategic plan. This is one of my favorite slides of the presentation because what we do in a budget, that's the numbers, and this is the return on the investment, right? This is the work that we do every single day, the teachers, the assistants, the bus drivers, the custodians, everyone in the building. We work towards these kinds of things for our students. And so I could put slide after slide of our accomplishments and the things that go on in our schools. A couple of things I'll highlight for you tonight. We've had over 200 Manassas Park High School students complete a work-based learning experience this year. We've really been working towards enhancing our career technical education program and really finding those opportunities for students to engage in real-world opportunities. I also saw last week we sent 25 of our girls to the Women in Roofing project again this year, and those students come out of that project with certifications and really just an amazing set of skills and an opportunity to work together and learn together in an environment that's really interesting. We've had 96 students get direct admission to George Mason University this year, and so we continue to have that partnership, as well as many other things that are going on in our school division. As you know, I'm required by the Virginia Code to present a budget each year. I have to do that before February, and then the school board moves on in their process for the budget. This budget we have developed using a needs-based, zero-based budget development framework. The total proposed FY26 budget consists of 6 funds: federal, operating, grants, capital, medical trust, and food services. That totals about $65 million, a little under $65 million. All of those funds are balanced. The general operating fund is balanced using projected local funds, projected governing body allocation, and a request for a partial use of the city's school reserve funds. And we'll talk a little bit about that later in the presentation. Each year, I have to put together budget priorities. Just because it's not on this slide doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a priority in the school. We have a lot of priorities, but at the end of the day, we have to make decisions about where we want to fund certain things based on the revenue that we anticipate. So for this school year, the budget priorities that I've focused on and that the board has focused on within this budget are improving literacy and mathematics performance, investing in compensation and benefits, strengthening student support, and promoting sustainability and future planning. I'm going to take you through each of those priorities and talk a little bit about some of the highlights. Looking at our improvement in literacy and mathematics, several years ago, probably last year I think it is, I spoke to you all about the Virginia Literacy Act. It is a new law that the General Assembly passed in 2022 that requires us to do some very specific things around teaching students literacy. This past year, we've been focused on the K-5. In the FY26 budget, we are required to expand that Virginia Literacy Initiative over to the middle school. So you'll see this budget does have some expansion of that, as well as supplemental and intervention materials. I do want to highlight that this budget includes 43 ELL teaching positions, and ELL is an English language learner. That's what the acronym is. So this budget contains 43 positions for teaching ELL. In the past year, the General Assembly has changed our ratio for how we support our English language learners in our school divisions. We used to support students at a 1-to-50 ratio, 1 ELL teacher to 50 students. The change has now made us provide that service based on their level of need. So when students are just learning the language, there's a smaller ratio of students to teachers than when students are becoming more proficient. And so that creates an opportunity where we are required to have more and more teachers. As an example, or as a comparison, the FY25 superintendent's proposed budget included 26 ELL positions. So we were required to increase that significantly to meet those ratios that the state has required. The second budget priority of investing in compensation and benefits is something that we've been working on over the last few years. If you remember back in 2021, we started on our journey to change those salary scales and to help to make us more competitive in our surrounding jurisdictions. We've done a great deal of that work and really only have one more piece that needs to be done. We have done the review of our stipend scale, and stipends are those things that teachers receive or staff members receive if they are coaching a sport or working with a club. We've done a review of that to make that more comparable. However, it is not, the funding for that is not included in this budget, but we have completed it so that we know moving forward what that might need to be. This budget does include a 5.2% average salary increase for instructional and classified employees, a 4.2 average salary increase for managerial employees. It does include a top scale supplement for instructional and classified employees. We do have employees that are at the top of our scale, and they would not be able to incur a step. So this is a recognition for their service, their years of service, their expertise, and really keeping them here so that they can teach those young ones that are coming in at the beginning of their education career and try to support them and mentor them along the way. It does also include a school board salary increase. I know that there's been discussion and you all are aware of that. It includes a salary of $6,000 for members and $7,000 for the chair. The second part of this is investing in the idea of benefits. One of the ways that we can continue to compensate our school employees is really look at those benefits that are provided, not just their salary compensation. Each year I have a superintendent's advisory committee, and this committee is made up of representatives across the school division from all of the different areas, from food service to transportation to teachers to instructional to administrative. We come together once a month, and each year we try to take on a project. And this year, our group took on really taking a look at benefits. What kind of benefits do we have? Where could we be better? What could we do different? Where could we maybe have a leg up on other school divisions? And so this is a really great group. They're represented here. They were fun to meet with and really to dig into the conversation. What we learned, I think one of the big takeaways we learned is we do a very poor job of educating our employees on the benefits that they have. And so something that doesn't cost a whole lot is that education piece, and making sure that everyone understands what they have, how they can access it, and where it needs to go was a big takeaway, I think, for all of the members of that team. In our work that we did together, we defined basically 3 kinds of things that we needed to look at. The idea of leave, how it's used, what it's like, those types of things. Insurance, primarily health insurance benefits, and then retirement benefits. We could not take on every one of these in this budget, so this year we focused on leave, and we'll continue to look at insurance and retirement as we continue to move on. In the area of leave, this budget does include some changes for us. It includes a 6-week paid maternity-paternity leave after 1 year of service in Manassas Park City Schools. Transition of all sick and personal leave balance to paid time off balances. We currently offer employees 10 sick days and then 3 personal days every year. And we have a lot of different regulations and rules around you can convert, or you can do this, or you can do that. And what we found is a lot of those are impeding some of what needs to happen, as well as makes things very difficult. It's an extra work on employees that are processing that part of the process. So we're moving to just a typical paid time off balance. There will be no changes in the annual leave. We will also provide 15 PTO days beginning July 1 and no change to the annual leave. The current allotment is 10 and 3, so that is an addition of 2 days. And then we will have to, in doing that process, we do need to take a look at our leave policies, our regulations, and do some revisions to those for July 1. So our employees are aware of what the process is and how to access that information. Our regulations around leave have not really been addressed for probably the best part of 10 to 12 years, so it's time to take a look at those and make sure that we are in compliance. And we will also be moving to a new benefits administration platform. that provides it's more user-friendly, it's enhanced customer service, and provides us with a little bit more education for our employees. So we're looking forward to that changeover. In the area of strengthening student support, there are several things that are in this budget. We have added an additional counselor at the elementary campus. We currently have 2.5 at each building, so each building is going to have 3 of those counselors. We are adding a dean to the high school, a dean of students who works with intervention, prevention, and really trying to do that proactive kind of work prior to any formal disciplinary actions. We are adding front office support positions for both the high school and the middle school. You've heard me talk about cell phones and the new laws regarding cell phones and the requirements for that, and so having some additional staff and support staff in the front offices to help manage the phone calls and the things that come along with that is important. We are maintaining our school attendance resources. After COVID, we received some funds in a grant that was a one-time grant to address attendance, and that included some staff members as well as a platform for attendance. We have seen some significant improvement in our attendance rates. Actually, the division reduced their chronic absenteeism by more than 12% in the past year. And this comes from people doing that intervention, not necessarily just letters going out and things happening in that way. Our staff members are meeting with families, having attendance conferences, and really trying to intervene and support our families if we identify an attendance issue. So maintaining those resources was really important in this budget, and that when those grant funds are gone, we have to roll that into the operating fund. We have also included Care Solace, which is our 24/7, 365-day mental health care coordination services for all of Manassas Park, for our schools, our students, our staff, and any family and community member. This is a great resource. It is multilingual and it's available to anyone, easily accessible. I've shared a little snapshot with you there. This is the data that's provided to me. No identifiable data comes to me. This is just simply numbers. But you can see from July of 2024 to February of 2025 that there have been 91 cases seen through this process, more than 5,000 communications, and when you think about that, these are typically communications that would be happening through our school counselors, and if they're not happening in the school counselors, then they're not happening. And so this is another opportunity for our families to have that resource and that support. Coordination care for appointments, for mental health resources, also is at 55 of those, and you can search information on the website and gather information for yourself. So you can see a snapshot of that. It's really very important for us, and just another opportunity to make sure that that our mental health is being taken care of, and that it supports our students and our community as a whole. This budget also includes the free breakfast and lunch program for all students, continuing that. I know that has been a conversation that we've had in the past. And the final budget priority is the sustainability and future planning. If you remember, back in 2023, we worked with the governing body, the school board and the governing body, to create the school reserve line item. The purpose of that was to provide sustainability for salaries in all of those positions. We know as we try to continue to maintain a competitive edge, that those salaries will continue to increase year after year. And then to begin to prepare for any potential changes in the local composite index as the city continues to build and grow and change. This reserve line item has grown as a result of our fiscal prudence and year-end surplus. We have ended the practice that we simply spend at the end of the year, so we do our best to return those funds back to that line item to continue to provide that sustainability for our salaries. This FY26 school board approved budget requests partial use of the city's school reserve fund in the amount of $872,078. You've seen this before, and I'm going to ask Mr. Lyon to come up, and he's going to take you through some of the data charts and the information. But as we've talked about before, our budget process is a 5-phase process, and he'll start with that particular slide. And I see that Board Chair Alexander has joined us, and I do want to take a minute to just thank my board members who are in the audience. for their support and their work, as well as our past board members that are now governing body members. I think there's a few of you up here. So I want to thank them for their work. And at that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Long.
Thank you, Dr. Saunders. Mayor Mason, fellow council members, good evening. I'll begin with a quick summary of our development process. This is a 5-phase process. Phase 1 begins with our budget holders at school level, and they examine their students' needs, the strategic goals, their achievement targets, and identify what sources they need to achieve those targets and improve learning. Phase 1, they then present those requests to their supervisor, the principals, the department heads, their directors, and prepare to present them at Phase 2 to the executive team. We review those requests in light of the needs that they have communicated. We look at our revenue projections, and we try to balance the budget at that point as much as we can. Then we present it to the superintendent. Superintendent then reviews those requests, the revenue against the expenses, along with her priorities, and makes her adjustments. And then we present it to the school board to be adopted, which has occurred on March 3rd. So we are here tonight to present the school board adopted budget. One important input that goes into developing the budget is our student enrollment. As I presented in the previous years, our enrollment continues to decline. However, the rate of decline has decreased, has slowed down. And I credit that to the development here in Manassas Park to stave that off. But it still is decreasing from year to year. What's not decreasing are our population of the students who have greater needs, instructional needs. For example, if you look at the lines on my chart, the first one is red. That is the students who are economically disadvantaged. We're at 55% of our population, which you can see is growing over the past 3 years. Green is our English language learners. We're up to 45% of our population. And the black line there is students with disabilities. We're at 15%. When compared to the state averages, our averages are right in line, with exception to our English learners. The state percentage, I believe, is at 12%, and we are at 45. Looking at the Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service out of UVA, they do work for the Virginia Department of Education, completing enrollment projections for the state. When looking at our enrollment projection from their data, they do predict our population, our student enrollment population, to continue to decrease over the next 5 years. That is not unique to us. It's the same trend across Northern Virginia. Looking at per pupil funding through the year 2024, those are final numbers. Year 25 and year 2026 are projections. You'll see a dramatic decrease in our federal per pupil, and again, those ESSER funds or ARPA funds have sunsetted, so those federal funds have decreased significantly. As Dr. Saunders already addressed, our FTEs in this budget are 550, which is considerably higher than what we had last year. Again, those are the English learner FTE, teaching FTEs that added to that, almost 20. Our K-3 class size is 22-1. Our class size pretty much remains stable at 24-1 for grades 4 and 5. And in the middle school and high school, that's an average of 25-1. Looking at our revenue by source, around 66% of our revenue comes from the state. Almost, 26.3% comes to the city, 6% from the federal, and less than 1% from local. And local is a collection of other revenue sources, such as grants that pop up, the Bell Foundation grants, things of that nature, refunds that we get through certain other items. When looking at our expenditures, our funds, we have 6 funds. Our general operating fund makes up 89% of our budget. Our federal funds make up 3%. School nutrition makes up 4%. Capital makes 3%, and then you have medical trust and other grants coming in at 1% or less. Looking at our expenditures by function, almost 75% of our expenditures fall within the classroom instruction classification. And I would argue to say that all of these are classroom instruction, but we have to use the state codes and their definitions of what qualify for each grouping in that pie chart. If we look at expenditures at a lower level detail, 80% of our expenditures is salaries and benefits. Now, looking at each of our 6 funds, our federal fund for FY26, we're projecting our federal funding to remain level from last year. We have not received any indication for next year grant levels. So typically when that happens, we remain with level funding, and then we enter our expenditures. Now, one thing I want to point out here, down at the bottom, for FY26, we have expenditures at $1.8 million, and you'll see right above there, there's a negative $139,000. That is the shortfall for these positions in our federal fund that we will have to cover with our general operating fund, because I'm using level funding, but the salaries have gone up, the benefits have gone up. With level funding, that it will not cover all of those expenses. And that is part of the $820,000 that Dr. Saunders had referred to earlier. In our general fund in FY26, you can see the revenue up top there. The local funding, we're predicting about $365, the city at $14.6, the Commonwealth about $41.8, for a total of $56.8. Then looking at our salaries, which includes a 3% COLA plus a step, and then our benefit costs and other costs there. As you see, our non-personnel costs are fairly stable. So it comes down to $57.7 million in expenditures, which ends up being a shortfall of $872,078, which Dr. Saunders had referred to earlier, that we are requesting to come out of the stabilization line. Other grants, this is a new fund that we put in place last year. These are the all-in funds. And the purpose of this fund is to book funds or book grants that are multi-year performance, so they're not commingled with our general operating fund. Then that way it makes the transfers in and out at the end of the year cleaner. So these funds we have one more year on, so FY26 will be the last year. And as you see, we're predicting our expenses will match the fund balance, and we'll zero those out at the end of next year. School Nutrition Fund, you can see the revenues coming in there, local $29,000, Commonwealth $72,000, and the federal predicting that to be $2.3. With everything said, we're looking at our expenditures at 2.4, slightly over the revenue projection, and that is fine because we need to spend our fund balance down in our food service fund. We've been working on that for the past couple of years, and we're getting near the target fund balance that we need to be sustaining. Our capital projects, we've presented this recently. So you see we're working here, $2 million in revenue, 2.1 in expenditures, and we have a carryover balance to go into our CIP plan. Our medical trust, this is a self-sustaining fund for the most part. We receive money for the retirees' medical costs, and there are a few employees who have been grandfathered in from the past that we cover their share of the premium, and all of that comes out of this fund. Altogether, we're looking at a total budget of $64,874,855 with the $872,000 request out of the stabilization line. I have a 5-year forecast I'm not sure if that's on here, but you'll see it in your presentation. A 5-year forecast is built on a model of every other year is a step in a COLA, and then in between years is just a step. So we've used that to help with long-term planning with your budget office and our budget. As you can see there, we tried to follow that model, but we have not been successful yet because of the competition next door. We've had to do a step in COLA every year since we have begun doing the 5-year forecast. And with that, I will turn it back over to Dr. Saunders.
So our next steps, I think we're at the last one today. We presented the superintendent's proposed budget on February 10th. The public hearing on February 24th. On March 3rd, we did the budget adoption, the school board of budget adoption. And then we are here tonight to present the approved FY26 school board proposed budget. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close for tonight. I do want to, I think I'll address a question that I have received at every opportunity that I've presented this regarding federal funds. And Mr. Lyon touched a little bit on it, but as he stated, we have at this point not received any indication that our federal funding will change up or down. And so when the budget is built, we build that on the knowns at the time. So if you look back to the particular slide, this slide right here, you will see about 6.5% of our revenue comes from federal funds. I talk a little bit about a large portion of that comes from the food service funds. You saw about $2.3 million of the food service funds. Certainly if that was not coming to us, that would impact things like providing the free lunches and breakfast for all of our students. In addition to what else is included in that, we have a lot of title funds, and those would be things you may have heard of, like Title I, which provides resources for our students in reading and mathematics for those disadvantaged students. There's also Title II, which is professional development for our staff members. Title III is our English language learners funds. And these are all primarily staff members. They're all positions and resources. Title IV is a small technology grant that we actually wrap back into Title I. Title VI, 611 and 619 are both special education funds. They are about $800,000 of special education funding. And so that just gives you an idea of what is encompassed in that 6.5%. Again, at this point, we do not have any indication that any of that will change. So we are planning accordingly. We're just planning that it's going to be there. We would have to come back to the school board and the governing body to adjust the budget, to do a budget amendment should anything change.
Great. Thank you so much for addressing that. That's been the question on everyone's minds. Thank you, Dr. Sanders and Mr. Lyons, for coming out. Thank you, school board, for being here tonight. We'll take questions, comments. We'll start on this side with Councilmember Seigerling.
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question on slide 17. I noticed quite a bit of a jump in the total cost per pupil, 16 to 19 for those last 2 years. What's the primary driver there? Great.
This is based on funding, so our projected funding. The state has increased its funding, and the city has also. If you look at the local per pupil, that's the money that we're receiving from the city.
Yes, but why? What's the reason? Why are students educating students from 2025 to 2026 such a large jump? When you look at the jump between 24 and 25, it's pretty consistent as far as the jump, except for between 25 and 26.
Yeah. So if you look at the local per pupil funding, it went from 4,000 to 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
The state increased, but our ADM decreased. So, that's how the numerator and divisor, it's how it came out with those few $1,000s difference. We have increased funding local per pupil.
Okay, thank you. And then what's the balance on the
Stabilization.
Yeah, because I'm going to call it something else. Yeah.
I would probably refer to Tony, but I believe it's probably around $2 million to $3 million. We haven't transferred back yet for FY24 because the audit isn't finished. And I predict returning back about $1 million to $1.3 million from last year.
So there's about $3 million,
about $3 million to
and we're
get
pulling out about $1 million. Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. The question I have, because the city is probably expected to have a shortfall coming up, and I see your budget growing and a very strong support of education, but with students declining in the total enrollment, and when we were at 3,600 students, eventually going to 2,900, you're about 15 to 20% decline in total population, and FTEs are increasing. Are you building in a model or possible model of decreasing FTEs as a total with the student enrollment declining?
So I think we got to look at two things, and I would go back to this particular chart. So some of the things we can't control. So requirements around how we service special education students and how we service our ELL students are things that we're required to do by the state and and sometimes the federal government. And sometimes it does not come with funding. So what we do every year is we look at every single position and make those decisions, looking at making sure if we have a vacancy that when we review it, do we need to fill it? Can we pull it back? Do we need to use it for something else? Because our needs continue to change, right? And so what we might have needed 5 years ago isn't necessarily what we need today. So yes, I think we do that. If we need to pull things down, we will find ways in which to do that. And that would start with things that are not required.
Perfect. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Oh, thank you. Superintendent, Dave, thank you for the presentation. Excellent. It's good to see the school board members and chair here this afternoon. The only questions I have, because most of my questions were answered earlier in the process, was on the capital budget. You're budgeting roughly $2.1 million for, I think, 26. Just outline for the community, what are some of the capital projects we are planning on doing in FY '26?
Sure. We have several projects. Some of the things that are ongoing every year, we replace 2 buses every year, so that's about $300,000. Next year, we have, I'm trying to think of the big projects we have next year. We're replacing generators at our schools, backup generators next year at our schools. We have refresh programs going on at our playground. We have carpet replacement. All of our buildings are, built generally almost in the same time period. So everything's wearing out. We're replacing flooring, lighting projects. We have the vestibule project at the high school. Off the top of my head, those are the ones I remember off the top of my head.
No, that's an excellent list. Thank you.
I would like to, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'd like to circle back to one question that Councilmember Simon asked. One thing to remember per pupil, the reason it's gone up is we've had to add all those ESOL positions. We went from 25 last year down to 43 in this budget.
Mhm.
And that number, that per pupil, adds up all of our expenses divided by the ADM number. And it's not just simply adding across left to right on that table. All those numbers come from all the expenses added up divided by the number of students in average daily membership.
No, that was the question I had. I appreciate Councilmember Sutherland bringing that up.
And we have, when you look at our English learner population, the state's at 12%, we're at 45 or 55.
So on that note, vacancies, where are we with types of vacancies? I know how you think.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's like, oh my, I wanted to ask that.
So staff vacancies.
Yes.
So, I think we've done a little bit better this year than maybe the past 3 years. Each year we get a little bit better. We still have quite a few vacancies. When we talk about our ELL teachers, we're sitting with about 7 or 8 right now vacancies, and we're finding creative ways in which to serve kids. I don't really think that we're going to fill 43 positions of ELL teachers. I don't think that they're out there. I would love that, and if they're listening, please come and apply. But if not, we do have some other creative ways. We're really starting to think about how do we leverage our staff in different kinds of ways to be able to service our students and provide them with the best instructional process as they can. So it's still a challenge. We have people recruiting today. We had a group at George Mason, I think, today, and we have another group in New York today. So just trying to bring staff members in and recruit the best that we can. Salaries and benefits continue to be the primary conversation that new people are asking us as we stand beside all of our other colleagues as well.
Is there a vacancy rate or percentage that we can?
I can get that for you.
Okay.
It changes every day.
Okay.
So we continue to fill positions throughout most of the year. About this time of the year, we stop filling for a full-time position, but we look throughout the majority of the year. So what we start off with and what we are today might be very different.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I just had a question about the 5-year budget forecast. The variance by year, is on an upward trajectory. So I'm just wondering what the implications of that are for the city. Does that mean that every fiscal year you'll be asking for an increase in appropriations from the city budget to kind of meet that shortfall, or kind of how do you think about that?
Definitely is a leading indicator that that would be something that ends up happening. It's happened the last 2 years in a row. I know the former city manager, I know the current one too, will use this to plan out their 10-year allocations, and that's what's been the practice. But yes, it's definitely a leading indicator that some decisions will have to be made either way.
And then for fiscal year 30, there's a large expenditure in the capital fund. Could you elaborate on that for the community, just in
Sure.
terms of where that's going?
That is a need that we need to expand our CTE program at the high school, and so that's a placeholder to hopefully put on the whiteboard of planning to add an addition to the high school for its CTE wing, so we can expand our CTE offerings for our students.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for the presentation. The question, I guess, regarding the line, what's it called, the stabilization, is that being counted towards the total revenue in your general fund, or is it towards the city revenue incorporated in that? I mean, you have
Yeah, I
2.3
aggregate it all into the city transfer total.
So total in the city transfer includes that line?
Not tonight, not in our proposed budget.
Right.
Right now, it's a shortfall. It's not inclusive. It would be on top of the 14.6 that's there.
Got it, okay. I think that was the only question I had. Oh, I think you answered this earlier too when we had our meeting 101. The 43 ELI teachers positions that we needed to hire, the state or the government mandated that to us, but they're not providing any type of funding?
Actually, they do provide a portion of the funding,
Portion.
but we locally have to provide about 30% of that funding.
Yeah.
And you also have to remember Northern Virginia salaries as opposed to some other areas in Virginia. Certainly, we are trying to maintain our competition. We're trying to be competitive in the area and in the region, and so when we look at that, that's a big portion. So 30% of each one of those staff members is the local responsibility.
Yeah, thank you. And then lastly, regarding so this is for FY26 budget, and we have a proposed, I don't know what slide it is, I guess for the school board increased salaries. It wouldn't be taking effect this July 1st, my understanding. So, I think, what was it, 2028, there would be 27?
27, and the
So
Virginia code would allow it to happen in January of 27.
So would it make sense to put it in the next year's budget instead of this
Actually,
year's?
it's 26. I'm sorry, January of 26. It's allowed to happen.
Of calendar year, the January 26th. So putting it in this year's budget, then you can implement it January 1st. I see. Okay, so it wasn't 2027?
It'll go into effect.
Well, they're saying you go effect 2026.
It works the same way it worked for our increase in salary. It's the same
Yeah.
process. Like,
Okay.
they have to wait until the election. It's the same process that we had to go through. That's
Yeah.
why we're waiting until 27.
I think yours is July 26th, correct? July 1st, not January 1st.
Yes, so because
July.
their appointment cycle is different, and
Yeah.
the Virginia code for school board members is similar, but has a few caveats that are a little bit different around
I thought
when
it
it
was
can
July because of the
implement it.
fiscal year.
Yeah.
This
Correct,
is
when the
July.
fiscal year happens, as well as, I believe there's some language, I can get you the specific language, but I believe there's some language that it has to be in January of the following, of the appointment time.
Yeah.
So the appointment being July, then it would be January.
Right.
Got it.
A lot of boards
Yeah.
are seated in January.
Okay, I think those are the only two questions I had. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, one other follow-up.
Yeah.
What is the status of Senator McPike's proposal of the 1 cent sales tax per capital if the referendum is approved by the city or local jurisdiction?
I won't be the one to answer that one.
Okay.
I don't know what the status of it is. I know that there's been discussion of that being an option, but honestly, that's not something that I have been able to follow. We don't levy any of that. as school boards. So I don't know, but certainly we can get you some
Well,
information.
maybe our team knows.
Yeah, maybe
Kelly,
they do.
Kelly knows.
Yeah, it's pending the governor's signature.
Oh, it is, waiting for
Yeah.
signature.
I think he has
Yeah,
till
that's
the
the
24th
latest.
of March. I looked that one up.
Otherwise, it goes into law,
Yeah,
right?
if he doesn't sign it, yeah, March.
And then we have to do a referendum as a city to approve the 1 cent sales tax
Mhm.
for the 1%. Yeah, that's great. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
I have another
Yeah.
question.
Councilmember Morel?
Sorry, just a follow-up, Councilmember Javet's question around the 2/3, 1/3. Does that stay the same regardless of the percentage of students in need? Whether it's, because we're higher, we don't, get more benefit from the state in a percentage term? Okay, thank you.
It does not.
Okay.
So just a question again around the 43 teaching positions. Is that 43 new positions?
No, that is 43 total.
Right, okay. What do we have
So
now?
Right now, so we are sitting at 33.
The approved budget from last year this time was 25, and now we're sitting around 30. We, was mid-year, well, late in the summer, the governor changed it. So when we presented the FY25 budget last year, we had 25 in the budget.
Okay,
Then the governor, General Assembly changed the ratios before we opened in August.
Okay.
So we had to, as part of the amendment last fall,
Mhm.
we had to add 10 new positions in December
So
on our
30.
budget amendment. So now, that took us to 35 or 36, now we're sitting at 43.
okay, so we're just short a few. 7.
Well, 28, well,
Yeah.
not 20, 18, 17 positions.
And we have how many open right now?
7 or so right now.
Yeah, I think we have 7 or 8 open currently. So of the 10 that we added, we were not able to fill all of those positions, but we are using some of those funds. Some of our teachers are taking on an extra block who have that certification, so they're being paid that differential. We have some teachers that are taking on caseloads that are being paid a differential, so different kinds of creative ways. They have to be certified ELL teachers, so that's what we're looking for in that mechanism. So yes, we will add we have to be able to certify that we have the correct number of ELL positions in our budget to meet our standards of quality requirements for the state. How we do that is up to us, but we do have to be able to say that we have that number placed in there, and how we use those funds to service the reality of having that many teachers is not. I don't think it's going to happen.
Thank you, thank you.
I'd encourage you all to become ELL teachers.
All right.
Anyone else out there?
We'll work on that in our free time. Any follow-ups? Any more follow-ups? All right, well, thank you so much again for coming out.
I do want to, I don't know if Chairman Alexander would like to send his closing remarks. He did make it off of I-81.
You're welcome.
Please, I'd like to apologize for being about 5 minutes late. I had a 12-and-a-half-hour drive from West Tennessee. So I just came straight here. A little car fire on 81 threw off my timelines a little bit. But I wanted to just take the moment to thank Dr. Saunders, Mr. Lyon, and the advisory committee and the school board for all the time and energy that's gone into this. I also want to thank the governing body for taking time out of their schedules to meet with us on a one-on-one or in pairs. It helps us to keep a finger on the pulse of what's important to you guys. As well as one of the things, just so it's in the public, that we want to make sure that you guys already know, is that one of the things we're going to be working on next year is also trying to provide you guys insight of what was left out of the budget, stuff that we would have liked to have included, but that we had to leave out in order to kind of bring the number down. Obviously, it's a big number, but that number is still, not everything we really want, but obviously we've got to make sure that it's a needs-based budget, and we want to bring you guys a number that you can live with. So one of the things next year we'll be trying to include, or at least in our one-on-one breakout sessions, is to give you guys the visibility of what was left out in case you guys determine that, well, you know what, that is a priority to us. We want you to increase that kind of thing. So just to give you that insight. And thank you again for the time, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. All right, next up, we have an informative presentation on driveway widths and surface area. Welcome, Calvin.
Good evening, Mayor Mensing, Vice Mayor Moore, members of council, residents, staff, and guests. I'm Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. Here tonight to give a presentation on driveway coverage. This is something we've spoken about before in open session, but I understood we wanted to recap and some new discussion items. So I'm here tonight. Okay. Basically, our driveway regulations in the city of Manassas Park, our restrictions only apply to driveways in the front yard. They would not apply to driveways in the side or rear yards. That restriction is essentially 20 feet maximum width of driveway or 20% of the frontage, whichever is greater. A corner lot is considered to have 2 front yards. So if you do have a corner lot, it would be 20% of that entire frontage of both of those yards. And a little misconception, the driveway number is not limited. Everybody keeps saying, oh, I can't have 2 driveways. Well, you could have 3 driveways, but you're gonna be limited by the 20 feet total width or the 20%, whichever is greater. So you can have 2 driveways, they would just have to be 2 10-foot driveways or some combination that adds up to 20 feet. So there's an error here. This should actually read no maximum lot coverage, or you could put a pervious before lot coverage and say that there's no minimum pervious lot coverage. But that is an error on the slide. The front yard is the only yard protected from 100% paving or concrete or structure coverage. The front yard is the only, in the R1 district, the only yard that has any sort of protections against 100% impervious coverage. So bullet 1 is just talking about the driveway width limitation. That's one of the ways the front yard is protected. Even on a legally non-conforming lot, like a lot of our houses on the west end of Manassas Park, they have a 30-foot setback, but because we've taken right away to widen Manassas Drive, they're legally non-conforming and they're only 20 to 25 feet setback from the roadway. Those are legally non-conforming structures. Even on those structures, they're entitled to 8 foot of front porch, the entire width of the house. So that is sort of a protection. They can only go 8 feet. But they can have an 8-foot porch even if they're already legally non-conforming and closer to the lot line than they should be. And then open structures like porches, terraces, things like that can go all the way up to within 10 feet of the lot line. So there is a protection there. You'll always have at least one little 10-foot patch of grass, but it's 10 feet from the lot line is where you start limiting those porches and things like that. And the only language in the entire zoning ordinance that would limit impervious coverage in these residential zones is the requirement that anything in the front yard not covered by structure has to be landscaped. So that's it for what we have as far as impervious area protections. So this is why staff feel that before we allow wider driveways, we really need to take a look at setting some lot coverage restrictions. We started a good conversation about this when we were talking about rear yard parking. And we kind of, the city attorney was on and said, we really can look at other jurisdictions and try to come up with something. But right now we just have nothing in place to limit lot coverage. And I think before we allow before we start loosening restrictions on lot coverage, we should set some sort of limit that says, okay, this is as far as we're willing to go. But staff were never directed to, bring forth a ZOTA after that rear yard parking conversation, so I'm not quite sure where that stands. Slide 4 is just a recap of the municipalities in our area. Of the cities and small municipalities in our area, we are the most generous with our allowed driveway widths. So that's all that chart is representing there. Again, they're talking 15 to 20 feet in Manassas, 14 feet in Falls Church, and 18 feet in Fairfax. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stormwater impacts. The only flooding problem that we've really experienced in Manassas Park in the past 70 years has been flash flooding. Flash flooding is a combination of rain intensity, time of concentration, and storm system capacity. And we can't afford to completely rebuild our storm system. It would take decades. So the storm system capacity, yeah, we can slowly address the trouble areas, but we're not going to be able to rebuild our entire system. And you know, we need to be cognizant with limiting the increases to impervious area that increase runoff and decrease the time of concentration. That's really the approach we need to take while we work on, you know, improving our stormwater capacity. Bullet 2 really should read decreases time of concentration. Decreasing time of concentration is a bad thing for runoff, increasing it is a good thing. When you think about time of concentration, think about water running through the woods or through a grassy field. It's like gotta play Plinko to get to where it's going. When you just have a flat paved surface, it goes just full on, no Plinko, gets to where it's going very quickly. So we actually want to increase the time of concentration. But faster water runs off and gathers into concentrated flows, the faster our system becomes inundated, and that's when we start to see our capacity issues revealed. And we like to talk about, we'll talk about bullet 3 more on the next slide, but poorly planned driveways can cause all sorts of water nuisances. So, you know, Manassas Park isn't flat. We were built on rolling hills. And sloped yards commonly use swales and overland flows to convey storm water from one place to the other, successfully. And driveways, just like other structures, you know, when they're poorly planned, they can block overland flows, they can block swales, and they can create standing water issues where they didn't exist before. When driveways are expanded closer to lot lines, you can dump a lot of water off on your neighbor's parcel. You can create new problems for your neighbors. And then when your ordinance doesn't require a grading plan, and I heard Mr. Fuentes' comments earlier, and that is great. If you can get people to put in drainage system improvements when they're putting in wider driveways, we don't currently require a grading plan for any structures in residential. So we don't have a major grading plan, we don't have a minor grading plan. When someone comes in and submits for a driveway, they don't have to show us the topography or anything that they're doing to mitigate any impacts on the stormwater runoff. So we get new structures with no consideration for drainage improvements, and you get rills, gullies, other erosion, even if you don't, you know, just get standing water. Because we aren't flat, many of the new driveways or widened driveways have to be cut into hillsides. Whenever you're cutting into a hillside, you're creating a whole new channel, for, you know, reducing the time of concentration, getting a whole bunch of water flowing across the sidewalk, flowing out into the street that you never had before. And again, we don't require grading plans for these things, so we don't have to put in drainage improvements. Most of these impacts on this slide would be addressed by requiring grading plans with drainage improvements. So engineers can see these problems coming from the topography. They can put drainage improvements in the plan to minimize the impacts, and staff would like to see a requirement for grading plans codified prior to allowing additional increases in impervious lot coverage. So there is no width restriction on driveways and the side or rear yards. We talked about that. So a limit to driveway width isn't necessarily a limit to off-street parking. I heard Mr. Fuentes say earlier that we need more off-street parking. Well, you can turn your whole side yard, rear yard into a parking lot. The real issue is that a lot of people have limitations on where their driveway could go to their backyard or something like that. So there are, you know, special case situations where off-street parking can only occur in the front, and that would be where driveway width is your only option. But driveway width doesn't really exist in the side or rear yards, so we have some houses in the city that have tons of off-street parking, just not in the front yard. You know, when we think about that, though, there is a downside to that. You could have 100% paved front or rear and side yard, and that's not a really good place to be. even a 4% wider driveway in many cases, or a 4-foot wider driveway in many cases, can be a 5% increase to the total impervious lot coverage. And that's looking at a standard 10,000 square foot residential lot, kind of shaped like we have on the west side of town. A 4-foot wider driveway is a 5% increase in impervious coverage for the entire parcel. A 25-foot wide driveway could mean front yards with 50% impervious area. You know, when you take all these other things into consideration, how far porches can encroach into the front setback, you could have a 50% impervious impervious area front yard. And that's why, you know, when you look at the fact that side and rear yards can be 100% impervious area, that's why staff would like to see some lot coverage restrictions put in place before we go reducing the regulations on driveways. So basically, you know, these are some code considerations, some permit considerations. We gave DEQ a snapshot of the city's impervious area in 2014, and we kind of agree by permit that we will offset any impacts of new impervious area through regulations and policies. When we just allow more impervious area to go in unchecked, we aren't really living up to the spirit of our permit that we are issued, you know, from DEQ. Speaking of snapshots, when we established our stormwater utility fee, we looked at the average impervious coverage on a single-family home lot, and it was about 2,500 square feet. So the 2,500 square feet became the ERU for commercial, the equivalent residential unit. That's what the 2,500 feet is. When commercial wants to increase their impervious area, they have to submit a site plan, they have to construct BMPs, they have to deal with on-site treatment of that stormwater, that additional stormwater, and they have to reduce their runoff. Altogether, they have to reduce the runoff off the site. If we're leaving residential impervious area unchecked, we're kind of creating an inequity between the payers, right? We have two payers, commercial and residential, and if one's allowed to create as much impervious area as they want with no repercussions, we're creating an inequity amongst the payers, and we need to consider that. So we talked about stormwater management techniques in the previous meeting that we could possibly implement in residential to sort of offset the increased impervious area. And just wanted to touch on the one that came up the most. It was pervious pavement. It is an exceptional concept. It just has not panned out so well in practice. It's very maintenance intensive, and you have to be really careful with how you clean it and the frequency with which you clean it, and use precautions are necessary. They're really designed for low traffic areas. I don't know if we would consider a residential driveway a low traffic area, but you have to be careful with the weights of vehicles, how they turn on those surfaces. It's very maintenance intensive, and they have a high failure rate even in commercial where they are they're covenants on the deed that run with the land, and they have to fix these things and maintain these things by covenant, and we still see high failure rates. So you can imagine what that would mean in a residential environment. They aren't just surface installations either. They require under drains, and those under drains cost and add maintenance cost to the driveway. Staff couldn't recommend pervious pavement in a residential environment. We just couldn't. The solution is similar to like alternative septic systems and geothermal systems. They're great concepts, but they add a lot of long-term cost and maintenance responsibility that most homeowners or home buyers just aren't prepared for. And I think anybody that knows anybody with an alternative septic system that's been saddled with those replacement costs, they know what we're talking about. You know, you're not expecting to just spend $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 because all of a sudden something failed. But that could be the same situation with pervious pavement. And the last slide, you know, this slide, it could be called the list of things to do before loosening driveway regulations. And And we really need to require grading plans for new or expanded structures. You know, we get asked by engineers all the time what the grading plan requirements are, and then we say none, and they get this big smile on their face, but they also get a simultaneous frown because they don't get to make money. But you know, we need to set lot coverage limitations. We talked about this. I think what I heard from the body during the rear yard parking discussion was everybody was open to some sort of lot coverage limitation. And I think we need to revisit that before we go loosening restrictions. And we did study the storm sewer system over on the west end of town following the flash flooding event that occurred on Manassas Drive. We did find deficiencies there. We know that those projects were too costly for us to fund in any sort of efficient manner out of our stormwater enterprise fund. We applied for a grant. We didn't get that grant, so we know what we're up against with those types of large-scale stormwater system improvements. But we never studied the rest of the city. You know, we had some flash flooding on Manassas Drive. We studied 2 major drainage areas. We didn't study the rest of the city. I would say before we really get into allowing more impervious area on residential parcels, we probably need to look at our entire storm system to see what the capacity actually is. So that's it. That's all I had. And any questions?
Thank you, Calvin. We'll start down here with Councilmember Javed. Any questions, comments?
I don't right now. Thank you.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Calvin, for the great presentation. Sounds like I've seen it before, deja vu, all over again. But no, I appreciate it very much. How much would it cost, and how long would it take to prepare a grading policy or plan for the city? I think it's important that we have a grading plan for, particularly for residential development.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised that we don't. So yeah, what would that take to do that?
That
What
would
be the
be a
cost?
staff effort. I wouldn't say that there would be any consultant costs involved. We would simply be looking
Okay.
at other jurisdictions, what their language says, and bringing you some recommendations based on other jurisdictions. Of course, it's a ZOTA, it's a zoning text amendment, so it would have a public hearing, and you know, we would be taking comments from the public before we ever voted on anything. So, yeah, I would say that the cost would just be staff time, you know, pulled away from other duties, but it's something that really we need. And you know, we would be looking at something because we want to protect the pockets of the residents. We don't want to make these improvements cost a lot. We would definitely be looking at the minor versus major grading plans that, you know, other localities do have. You know, sometimes you need a major grading plan. Sometimes you just need to study the topography and saying, okay, well, this is going to block this overland flow. How do I keep this? Well, is it just a culvert pipe? Is it an under drain? Is it, you know, is it a French drain? What do I do with this water? But nothing where everybody has to spend $50,000 on a grading plan. Something that people could go to an engineer and get done for $5,000 to $10,000.
Okay, that'd be great. Also, in the comparisons we looked at, I think it was Fairfax and Arlington, as far as their width, and we also threw in Manassas. Those are very dense communities with very little land. How does it stack up with places like Prince William County? What is their driveway width in comparison? Because it seems like we're comparing ourselves to towns that are very dense.
Yeah, and I think the challenge there is in counties as large as Prince William, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, where you still have agricultural districts with residential built on them, you start mixing so many district regulations. We could certainly look at, you know, the standard R1 regulations there, but you see a lot of houses in Loudoun and Prince William especially that are in the A1 district, and they're not as limited with, you know, the urban type of regulations that we're talking about. So,
Or maybe places like Herndon, Reston might be more comparable.
yeah, we can get those and email those out to the body.
That would be helpful. That'd be helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Meyer?
No questions, thank you.
So, yeah, I have a question. So the second bullet, regulate maximum lot coverage. So when you were presenting and you're talking about they can basically concrete the entire backyard, what's the difference as far as stormwater impact if that's what we're worried about, whether it's in the front or the back?
Well, so we don't have any lot coverage limitation. Front yard, rear yard. The front yard is the only thing that can be be said to have any sort of coverage limitation
Right,
because you
so
are
the driveway.
required to landscape whatever is not structure, and we do have some setbacks that keep you from building structure within 10 feet of the lot line.
Right.
The rest of it, yes, you can't build a shed, you can't build a garage right up against your lot line, but there's no such restriction on just driveways or pavement.
Right.
So you know, that's what we're saying is, before we start loosening the restrictions we already have in place for the front yard, let's look at the entire lot and say, okay, what is a total lot coverage limitation that you couldn't exceed? And that way, people can make the decision, okay, maybe I want 4 more feet of driveway,
Right.
but that means I'm not gonna be able to have my entire backyard paved, or I can't have my pool and my 2 sheds. I'm gonna have to make some decisions about what I actually put on my property, because I can't have any more coverage than that.
So I like the focus of the overall, the bigger picture, because as far as stormwater impact, that's where it should be anyways, versus how wide my driveway can be. And I think the focus has been for a while, how wide can my driveway be versus how do we reduce the stormwater impact overall. So I think that's important. Also, just a simple question. As far as the driveway is concerned, where's the measurement being taken? So if I have a driveway, it's here from the street, and this is 20, and then it goes like this, so it widens up.
But that's probably off of your property though. Where the apron is and it widens, that is beyond your lot line. It would be measured from your lot line to the house. Any width within that area between the front line of the house, the front plane of the house, and your front lot line, that's where the driveway can exceed the 20 feet.
Okay.
Once you get beyond the front lot line and into the public right-of-way, yes, your apron is gonna flare out and oftentimes be much wider than the driveway
I was
itself.
talking about this way, towards the house.
Oh,
Flaring
towards the
out,
house?
flaring
Yeah,
towards the
front plane-
house.
The front plane would be the limit of the front yard. So anywhere, if you just draw a line across the front of the house,
It's
just
20.
make a plane there, nothing in front of that can be 20 feet. Once you get past the front plane of the house, it can be as wide as you can fit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation. Next up, our last presentation of the night, our Vertex One water billing software demonstration.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the governing body. Tonight we have Ashley Miranda from Vertex One, who will be joining us virtually to give us a quick overview of the new features with our water meter software. This is all coming with the water meter replacement project that we started about a year ago that allows for customers to be able to kind of view water usage in almost real time. And so she's going to go over a lot of the neat features. It's for your awareness, but also anyone watching at home to kind of get an idea of what they'll be able to do online. We'll start posting that information tomorrow to the public on how to access their portal. And just want to thank the mayor for allowing us to use her address to demo. We were hoping to use a city facility, but doesn't quite have all the features because they're set up as commercial versus residential. So she graciously allowed us to use her address, so we're going to get to see how much water she uses. Sorry.
No judgment.
Ashley is joining us now. Thank you.
Thank
Welcome,
you for the
Ashley.
introduction. Thank you so much. All right, so thank you everyone for joining this demo here. As was said, my name is Ashley. I'm with Vertex One, presenting a demo of the WaterSmart customer portal that Manassas Park is making available for its residents to view information regarding their water usage and access water utility billing. So as you see here on my screen, this is the login page that residents will see in order to register their account. To register an account, the customers, their service number and customer number separated by a dash here. So I'm just going to paste in the account number here. And as you can see, there's a pop-up just illustrating the exact information that is required here, followed by the zip code. So we'll be entering that here as well. Those two pieces are needed. And just before I click Find My Account, I want to point out here, the site or portal is available in both English and Spanish. So once a resident comes in here, they enter their account information as well as their zip code. One will select Find My Account here. We found your account, perfect. So assuming the customer sees their correct address here, they will then enter their email address followed by a password that they will create. So here, just going to create one very quickly here. And as you can see, there are some requirements for the password. They'll need to agree to the site terms and privacy policy. Once that is completed, we'll click Take Me to My Account here, and that will complete the registration process. So it's as easy as that. Once they complete that, they'll be forwarded here to the WaterSmart customer portal. This here is the home page. So as we can see, quite a lot of information regarding consumption, water consumption, as well as some billing information. I'll note at the top here, we have some tabs which can be accessed through some quick links within these tiles as well. So various ways they can get to the information that's available here. So really quick, we have the service address at the top, the account number, and then some tiles here. We have a view and pay bills tile with information regarding their bill and past billed consumption here, or past bills. We also have a My Daily Use tile illustrating their gallons per day usage. And we also have a notifications tile here. So these are announcements from the Manassas Park Water Department here. If the customer clicks into any of these, they can see some additional information. Scrolling down further, we have a I want to or quick links tile here. So these are quick links that Manassas Park is making available to customers. Some of these are self-help or self-service tools. So understand a high bill. If a customer clicks that, it will show the customer information on why their bill may look the way it looks. And they can toggle through these steps here. Going back, just one more quick link, an important self-help tool here we want to make sure the residents are aware of. There is a check if I have a leak or leak resolution diagnosis tool here. Essentially, it's a step-by-step self-service tool to help the residents diagnose the sources of leaks, potential leaks here. There is step-by-step guides, information on the different tests that they can conduct, and ultimately they'll be able to provide information on if they confirmed the source of the leak or if it was a false positive. Going back here to the quick links, that covers it for the self-help items. There are other links here as well that residents have available. We have a My Water Score tile here, which is a social comparison showcasing for the residents how much water they're using during a given period of time relative to similar households, which these similar households are identified based on characteristics such as irrigable area and the number of occupants within the household. Customers or residents can update that information themselves so that their estimates are more accurate. A few ways they can get to that. There is a hyperlink here, who am I compared to? If the residents click that, there is an update profile link here, which will take them to update their customer profile. So, how many occupants there are in the household, if they rent or own, various information that they can provide so that it's coming directly from the customer. And that in turn impacts who they're compared to, as well as some of the estimates that are displayed in a few places, which I will show in just a bit. There's also a recommended actions tile, so recommendations that the customer can take action on to help them conserve and save money. If they click see more here, it takes them to those recommended actions. These are displayed or selected based on their household profile or customer profile. So they can click through here and see those recommendations and select to either start them, mark them as completed, or maybe it just doesn't work for them and they can remove that for themselves. Really quick, just to wrap up the homepage, there is a social media tile. So the City of Manassas Park Facebook page is linked here, so they can see those posts here as well. Moving along, we have with the tabs at the top here, there is a billing tab, which of course has billing information, balance, billing history. There is also an evaluate bill section, which shows information on their billed water use, as well as some quick links to help them set up alerts based on when suspected use or suspect or potential leaks occur. There is a track tab which shows the residents their water usage analytics, so information on how much water they're using within a given period of time. It looks like it's taking a little bit to load. My apologies here. Once that does load, it will show the residents their usage. So here we can see there is AMI interval usage or reads here. The customers can drill down to see their hourly usage for the 24-hour period, so they can get down to the hourly use. I will note that the hourly usage is available in the PC version of the customer portal. It is not available in the mobile version. So this is where they can see that information. There's also some additional charts regarding their water usage. And then at the bottom here, there is an estimating your end uses pie chart showing, again, these are estimates. So based on their household characteristics, what the end uses are suspected to potentially be. We covered the take action, which is the recommended actions here. The last place we'll take a look at is the settings. So the residents can toggle their account settings here. They can also add additional accounts. If it's let's say a property manager, for example, they can link their multiple accounts that they have so that they only need to log in using a single user and password combination. And then there's also the ability to add additional users. Let's say we have a landlord-tenant situation. We can select the role for that additional user and then add a first, last name followed by an email address. From there, the additional users will have their own login to the customer portal for this account. Note that the additional users do not have access to billing information, as well as will not receive notifications. The very last section here, communication preferences. This is where residents will be able to toggle their notification alerts. So depending on what things they want to be alerted of, there are high use notifications. So if their usage exceeds 2 times their normal usage or normal seasonal use, there is a sliding scale here, so residents can toggle that if their usage, they expect it to be higher than is predicted here. And they can also toggle the delivery channel or the delivery method here. So there's email, text, and voice messages here. So as you can see, a few options for usage alerts, and that concludes the demo of the customer portal.
Thank you, Ashley. Let's take comments, questions, starting down.
I just have a few. So if a user is having problems logging in or has questions about how to navigate to a particular piece of information, who are they contacting and what are the hours of service? That's the
so any questions, any resident questions should be directed to the Water Department of Manassas Park.
So are we prepared to handle that that increase in call volume?
Yeah, we've tasked the customer service team, who they're like DC and them who sit at the front desk on the main level or up here. They'll be the ones kind of gathering those questions and then working with the water department to resolve the issue.
Okay, so just logging in. I'm just talking about logging into the, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
No, we'll start pushing out the information on how to log in and where to find their customer number and account number starting tomorrow.
And then service charge for payment through the portal, is there one? Are we encouraging them to pay through there? And what's the service charge if there is one or is there not?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, but doesn't it take them to the outside payment portal to make the payment?
That is correct. It is a redirect link.
So it takes them to, is it Keystone?
So we haven't.
Yes, I can just share my screen here just to show that here. Apologies. So here, if
Give
they
us
click
1
it,
second.
it will direct them to the Tyler.
It's the old payment portal.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's still a service charge to pay online.
I think for credit card, there's a small fee.
What about debit card?
Credit and debit usually has a 3%. That's just for all credit and debit cards within
So
the
what
city.
about, so there's no way to avoid the fee to pay online?
Right, unless you came in, even if you paid here by credit card, there'd be a 3% fee, because we just, that's what we have to pay.
But for a check, we're still spending the time to process a check, correct? And there's no fee with that?
Correct.
So in the navigation, there was, she was saying like if there is a leak, and it says, was there a leak, yes or no? So if she says yes, are we helping them with that, or are we doing anything with that? Why are we asking them to confirm if there's a leak or not? Like, is there something beyond saying, yes, there is a leak?
It gave them tips on things to look in their house for leaks,
Right.
so like running toilets
Right.
and stuff like that.
But then it says, was a leak found, yes or no, after it gave the tips. So if they click yes, what happens?
Ashley?
Sure. So that information is provided to the utility on the utility side of the platform here. So it's more so informational for the utility.
What are they doing with it? Who's the utility? What does that
That's
mean?
us.
Okay, so what are we doing with that?
We would have to contact them and find out, and we're monitoring almost daily for high usage alerts, and we'll go to residents and say, hey, you're having, like when she showed the hourly chart, if we're seeing water usage, overnight, then we're gonna send Wayne or one of his team goes over and knocks on the door and tries to help figure out what the leak problem is. But if it's within the residents, it's really not something that we can always help fix. And even anything from the water meter into the house, we aren't able to fix. But if it's at the meter, then that's where we would fix it.
Okay.
No questions. Thank you.
No questions.
Does the software have the ability to reduce the amount of time that teenagers spend in the shower? Because that would certainly help me out.
If so, then I'm moving back to Manassas
Yeah.
Park.
I'm looking forward to having my son get text messages that he's been in the shower for half hour.
There is a upside to that. They smell better. They
That's
get them
true.
out
That's true. It's a double-edged sword. Thank you for the presentation. I do have a couple questions as well. Is this platform phone friendly? Is there an app for it, or would it be compatible on our iPhones and Androids, or is it only on desktop that we could access?
I'll let Ashley answer that one.
So the preferred method of access is, of course, a desktop PC. There is no application, no mobile app. However, there is a mobile web version of this site, which, it's mobile friendly. The one thing I will highlight is that the hourly AMI, so the hourly interval usage, is not visible within the mobile web version. That is only visible within the PC.
Okay. You mentioned something about notifications. There was a taskbar on the side of the screen. That's for like if city wants to send out a mass message to the residents, they could post a notification on that taskbar?
Yes, the notifications bar, yes. So announcements, reminders, the City of Manassas Park Water Department is able to update that. So if there are new announcements that you'd want to make visible for residents, we can definitely accommodate for that.
Okay. Is there any auto messaging about being late or missed payment that the software would do, not the city?
I believe that would go through the billing portal or the billing vendor.
Okay. What else I had? Was there a tab? I know you said you can see recent payments and past payments. Was there a tab that shows that you paid recently or what the payments history was?
So as far as billing information, it will display the account balance. as of, so it'll have an as of date, but I believe the most up-to-date information for this would be presented within the actual billing portal, not within WaterSmart.
Okay, so not here. So the billing portal, I don't think currently does that right now.
Yeah,
Something.
it takes them over to the Tyler app or, website to make the payment.
Because it happened to me. I don't know. Like, sometimes I'll pay the bill, and then 2 weeks later, I was like, "Did I pay? I'll pay again." Or I have to check my balance on my account if anything came out. But it would be good to see a history of past payments. If a payment was made recently, it'll post on that, on somewhere, Tyler, this, or somewhere where the residents can see.
I'll look into that and get back to you.
On this platform, can a resident say they're moving in, renter, owner, can they electronically set up water service?
No, that still need to go through the treasurer's office.
So that, we still have to make a phone call and can't schedule online?
No.
Okay. What else we have? Okay, I think those were my questions about that. But yes, thank you for the presentation.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
All right, we're up to consent agenda, and tonight the consent agenda includes the approval of the minutes of March 4th, 2025 governing body meeting, that the governing body appoint the following individuals to serve on the Economic Development Authority of the City of Manassas Park, Virginia: Rachel Kirkland for a term that will expire on November 18th, 2025, Eddie Harden for a term that will expire on November 18th, 2026, Robert Maldonado for a term that will expire on November 18th, 2026, and Jeanette Rischel for a term that will expire on November 18th, 2027. That the governing body appoint Shalab Gupta as a citizen member of the 31st Judicial District Community Criminal Justice Board. That the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign an amendment to the mowing and lawn care services agreement with Brightview Landscaping Services, Inc., dated August 15th, 2024, as presented and subject to final city attorney review. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. New business, request for proposal for municipal legal services.
Thank you. So we sent this out to you last week. We're basically at the stage now where we just want to be able to cross the T's and dot the I's. So I've gotten some good feedback from some of you on what you see missing in this document. And so Mark and his team is prepared to make the changes necessary. But what we're looking for now is just, what do you think? Is this where you want to go? Because you're the hiring authority as a group, and so we're just looking for any final notes before we make the correction or make the changes recommended and get it out in the wild.
Okay, let's start with Councilmember Javed.
I think some of the questions that the other governing bodies sent in the email, I agree with some of those questions and comments. My opinion on this is that I see this as a temporary. I don't know how the governing body feels about this, but this is, for me, I would think a transition into until our current city manager leaves. This transitions in, but I also would like to, city attorney, sorry.
Please stay.
Temporary.
Yes, but I would also like to start do a hiring process, because I think it's important to have a dedicated individual be present and be, well, I guess present during the meetings, but also off hours as well, and be able to accommodate governing body needs. I don't think a firm will be able to do that more effectively than an individual. So if we go down this process, then it's okay. I mean, some of the questions is fine, but I think we would have to have a limit until, I mean, it doesn't have any, it doesn't say how long we're gonna hire this firm for, right? So are we gonna add it, or are we not gonna add it? Is it year by year? Is it gonna be 5-year contract? I mean, what's the goal for this RFP?
I believe it's mentioned that it's 1 year.
It's 1 year.
With the option to review.
It is 1 year with an option to renew twice, 2 years. All terms are subject to negotiation, however, but that's just where we started. I would also say that it does allow us to terminate the contract with 60 days' notice, and vice versa. But I will say that going into it with the idea that we're going to be quickly getting out of it will probably limit our responses. I think the discussion we've had is that finding another unicorn like Dean is going to be really hard to do. Municipal law services are so broad. Most attorneys specialize in land use or personnel or different things, and finding somebody that has that broad base of experience is going to be difficult. So if you decide you want to pursue that, I think that it will take us a year to find that unicorn and lure them to the city. So just my thoughts on the matter.
So a couple of comments. First off, I'm sorry if I missed this, but is this?
Is your microphone on, Ken?
Maybe. Hello? Thank you. Maybe I'm not close enough. Is it firm fixed price or time and materials, or like a combination of a retainer plus T&M?
Yeah, so Mark is going to correct me if I say something wrong, but due to Virginia procurement laws, you can't use price as a factor when you're settling this out. So we don't know yet. It's when once you get responses and you've scored them, we'll begin
so
negotiations.
So the potential vendors will offer what they think the appropriate payment structure is?
Correct. We'll start negotiating once you settle on the firm.
And so just kind of piggybacking on Councilmember Javed's comment, sometimes if you have a professional organization doing it, the overall cost might be higher than a single individual. And so that's just one thing to consider, is that if we want that kind of breadth and depth of a law firm, and I understand that price is not to be a consideration of the factor, but just kind of thinking, is it if it's 2x or 3x the current cost, is that something that we want to invest in as a city to ensure that we're getting the proper depth and breadth of coverage? But just wanted to bring that up as a comment.
Well, and you will have final authority. I mean, whatever contract's negotiated, you can yay or nay. Not to tip our hand too much, but there are ways to reduce costs based on, routine contract review. We don't want your $1,000 hour attorney. We want your $100 an hour associate. So there's
sure,
but that's all part of negotiations, and so I don't want to say too much. But cost will be a concern once you select a firm to negotiate with.
That's fair. All right, thank you.
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Some of the questions I've raised via email. Just want to illuminate a couple of them. The parliamentarian, we decided how that's going to work out, because I was hoping Dean had played that role in the past. So just thinking about who will going forward. And I think it's important that person be designated, whether it's this legal team or someone else on the dais over there to determine who the parliamentarian is.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mark Lozier, General Services Administrator. There were a couple of issues that I did want to broach tonight for your decision so I could get the proper information into the RFP. I didn't build the calendar with a two-step process where you would go and do a ranking at a meeting and then come back and do interviews, and I think that would probably be a good approach. If we were to do that, I would change the calendar a little bit. I would make the RFPs due 3 weeks from the issuance date. I would use the May 6th meeting for the shortlisting process. And in that process, you would use the ranking sheets and come back and get 3 of the top ranked firms. Second step would be to have a interview process, and we would bring the top 3 firms in. I would make those changes to this calendar. I gave them too much time for the response. I really need to just back that up and do a 2-step process. If that's good with you, we wouldn't need really any staff like ranking or rating participation. The city attorney is your employee, and you would be responsible for the shortlisting and for the interviews. At the interview meeting, the first meeting would be the 6th of May, shortlist, ranking. Second meeting would be to do the interviews. Top 3. After that, we'd go right into negotiations. That would be my recommendation for the change to the calendar. The only other thing I needed from you was whether or not you're okay with the ranking percentages I gave in the chart. What I did to create this RFP was I took 4 requests for proposals in Virginia for 3 counties and 1 smaller city. And I took the best of the best and I made this RFP. And that's why some of these conditions in here you see, those were the preferences of one of those 4 other communities. A lot of our agreements that are ongoing service agreements have a 1-year with 4 one-year renewals. I could make that change now. That might bring more to the fold if you agree with that, because I did use a short window. The second thing all I need from you to discuss is whether or not you're good with the ranking criteria. You'll notice in the RFP, the ranking criteria and how they respond, the proposal format is identical. The sections in the ranking criteria are how they have to respond to the RFP. So this will be a clean process. And the other thing was, if you want to weight the written responses, the ranking at the May 6th meeting as 85% as suggested, and then do the interviews for the other 15 of the total aggregate scoring, or if you want a different mix of that percentage. I merely copied what I had from an RFP, and I'll tell you why I went with it. Lawyers are good at arguments, but what's on paper is what they're going to say, and the RFP is going to become part of the agreement. So I felt that because it becomes part of the agreement, I would use their method of using 85%. So that was the rationale there. I would include a parliamentary sentence in that, as well as the motions. Someone mentioned motions. Yeah. I could add a couple of sentences, and I know exactly where I would put that. That's in that section about the governing body meetings. I would add a sentence for both of those. There was a typo, and yeah, so that's how I would change it. My plan would be to go forward with that and then send it out with the second draft, and then if the city manager hears no objections, boom, we're on the street on the first. So that's my report on the issues mentioned. The discussions phase is very important. That would be, the city manager leading those discussions and figuring out, that's the time where all the information is gathered from the firms that, have done these agreements with other local governments. You extract information. We start calling them and say, how much are you paying? When I was the administrator in Page County, we had a firm that did it. We had a contract and you'll notice the 3 counties I got were all small counties. I didn't use Page at all because I was there before. So I don't know if they ever RFP'd it, to be honest with you. They had the same firm forever, but yeah.
Mark, I appreciate the changing of the calendar to allow for interviews if needed, if we have a number of applicants apply. So I'd like to see that happen. I do have a lot of concern for the percentages that we've ranked, that we've given more, 85% for the written record as opposed to 15% for the interview process. Now, just hearkening back to the city manager process, we got a lot of applicants. And when you start reading, they all sound good. It wasn't until we had the visual interview that they did for us and the interviews where I had a chance to sit there and look them eye to eye and ask them specific questions. I rank that much higher than anything they've written. Law firms in particular, I've gone through a lot of RFPs, they will grab boilerplate language and say whatever they want to say to make it sound good. I want that person in front of me answering questions that are detailed, and I want that ranked higher, and I hope my colleagues agree, than the written word, which is, like I say, I find it to be boilerplate language and just a bunch of fluff material. Mm-hmm. So that's something I'd really like to see us change. Maybe a 50-50 or a 60-40 would be great. Where the 60 would be the interview and 40 would be the written context. That's it, Mark. Thank you.
I'll just ask a question. If we change the dates, as you mentioned, to have the interviews after the 6th, How does that impact the final date of June 9th? I'm already a little concerned that that's late.
Yeah, it probably would have to slide as well. It would be really aggressive to be able to have an agreement back to you between those two dates, so I'd probably slide back into July for the real transition date.
Okay, and
Yeah.
we're losing our attorney in the meantime.
That is the problem. I talked to Dean today, and I think he's still here, talking from the ceiling. But so we'll have to look at the timeline because Dean has some things he's going to need to do to wrap it up, and he'll be gone by the end of June. So if we're going to have any overlap time, we're going to have to figure something out.
Don't we have an attorney on contract that works with Dean? I'm almost positive. We hired a contract.
We do, yes, sir.
Yeah, we do. So that
So
person
they would
could cover.
in the meantime.
So yeah, he could download on them, and then they could download on the new person.
If we need that time.
If necessary, right? Yeah, we'll
if
see how it comes out. We might only get one response, and make it easy.
So that would give
Let's
you a
hope not.
window
Yeah,
of
competition.
the May 20th meeting and the June 9th meeting. Now you're going to end up getting a agreement brought to you probably that night or a couple days before, because that gives a couple of weeks to negotiate it. So you got from May 20th to, I think I had June 9th in there, where you would approve the agreement. So it's not impossible, but it's going to take some hustle, but hopefully whoever you select will be eager to get on board.
Okay. Councilmember Maya, no questions?
The only comment I have, I agree with the Vice Mayor Moore that I think the interview process is more important than the written. I'd like to see 50-50 or 60-40. Like you suggested, I'd like to probably do a two-step process if possible and probably move that up a little bit quicker, and hopefully that we have get that up probably in the middle of May completed. That's what I would like to see. Thank you.
Sure.
I also agree with the 4-year option to renew. With the interviews, I also agree with the 60-40. However, having been through RFP processes and interviews and demonstrations and all of that in the past, I think we need to make sure that the folks that they bring forward that we interview will be candidates that would work on our account.
Yeah.
That would work well.
Absolutely.
The
Oh.
candidate that's going to come and sit in our meetings.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
The person
Not the vice
representing will
president.
be
Or
at the meeting,
persons.
not the sales team.
Yeah, not the sale, exactly, or the
Right.
persons, because I know sometimes we have multiple people, maybe varying range, more of a junior, a middle, a top tier. Those are the actual people that would represent us.
And if there is a team, they should be investing with the whole team that night, actually, but
Yeah.
That'd be good.
it'll take a disciplined interview process, so you're gonna have to limit your questions to like planned questions and timeframes, I've done these before, like a 5-minute intro, a 5-minute closing, and then questions in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Unless you object, I will change the calendar and move it forward as discussed, use a 2-step process. I will add that it's expected that the team members show up at the interviews. And the last thing to mention is what's your pleasure on the split? Is it 50-50, 60-40, or?
Let's go down the line and please indicate whether you're 60-40, 50-50, or as is. Start with
60-40.
64.
What? So, hold on.
And that's 60
60-40,
interview.
Stacy.
Oh, mine was 60 response, 40 interview.
Oh, that's not an option.
Oh.
Sorry, pick 50-50 or 60-40.
50-50.
60-40.
60-40.
This is for the ranking?
All right.
No, this is for the.
Remember,
Wait, I'm lost.
50-50 is the
60-40.
services. What they say in their written response is
So,
going to tell
so
us what
I'm
the
going to
steps
say,
are.
this is on. I'm going to say,
If you don't mind, if you would give me your written percent first, followed by the interview percent, because that's how I have it written in the
Okay,
RFP. So
This
written
is
and then
40,
interview.
60. So far, we have Stacy's 50-50.
Stacy's 50-50.
Michael is 60-40.
No, 40.
No, 40-60.
I'm sorry, 40-60, yes. Yessie is 40-60. Daryl is 40-60.
Correct.
I'm going to go with 50-50 as well, because I agree that the written thing is that's the contract that they're legally bound for the time, and I think that's important.
Yeah, remember, it's also, if the written says, I'm going to offer you A, B, and C, and the other one says A, B, but A, B gives a great interview, and we really like them, but they're only offering A and B, and they can't make any of our meetings, by the way, because that's in the written. So now, but they interview really well. So now you're saying, you're you're cutting out the services, what they're actually offering in the RFP and the response. With the,
Well,
when you're waiting.
We would
the
ask them
interviews.
those questions about.
Yeah, but
you
we're
know,
not gonna ask
attendance.
all the questions that are in the RFP all over again, not all of them necessarily, you know
And
what I mean?
plus, you know, it's been mentioned that the RFP is a binding that's not true. The negotiations will start after we pick somebody.
And
That
if
is
I
not
may,
a bind.
we
I've
won't
seen so
bring
many
you
people lie
non-responsive.
in
Well,
RFPs, it's
when
not
you-
even funny.
You can take the
Yes.
RFP, turn it into a task order, and it's part of your purchase order, which is legally binding.
But I don't believe that's what the city's gonna do.
Well, we would
They're gonna
not bring you
negotiate.
non-responsive, if people submit and they're not responsive and hit every beat, we're not gonna bring them to you to interview.
Yeah. All right, Hasib?
Sorry, I'm lost here. What were you, this is
What
for
would you like
the
to weigh,
weights of
how would you
the-
like to weigh the written versus the interview?
On
So,
page 7 of
Yeah,
the
what's
thing,
it say?
it's in bold, on page 7,
so we have three options.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
in bold on 7.
We
page
weigh
7.
the written 40% and the verbal is 60. We weigh them equally, 50-50, or we keep it as written on page 7, which Daryl will come and show you.
Right now, it's 65% written and 15% interview.
That's 65%?
85.
85%.
And then 15% interview.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll go with the 40-60.
Thank you.
Okay.
That carries.
So that carries. The 40-60.
So 60% more.
Yeah, we'll use 40% for the written, for the responses, and then the interviews will be weighted at 60%.
Yep.
So the way it works is everything gets aggregated, and then the splits between the two ranking periods determine the ultimate ranking.
Thank you.
We do that on a spreadsheet, so we don't make mistakes. I think I have everything I need to update this, and it'll be an aggressive Phase 2 discussions period, and I'm sure that Mr. Cole will be talking to you all during that time frame.
Well, and I would ask, if you do think of something else, I mean, before we send it out, please let us know. This is important, and so we'd really like to get it right for you.
Yep. So please read it promptly, email any questions. Great.
So the firm that we have a contract with can do.
They can apply.
Apply for that?
Great. Thank you, Mark, for writing this up.
Yes, you're welcome.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Good work. Thank you. All right, Walk Safe Initiative Reflective Vests Needs Assessment.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may recall, Councilmember Javed asked that we investigate the possibility of doing some pedestrian safety project in the city. So based on the conversation we had 2 meetings ago, we did do a little work to figure out what the problem is and what the possible solutions might be. This is just a review of what was asked for. The discussion the night we talked about it was sort of diverged from this and talked more about pedestrian safety and in general, and not a specific solution, not vests necessarily, could be, you know, other things as was reflected in the memo that's attached to the agenda item. So we did some work. We got some collision data in the city and did some, you know, high-level research on what is the current industry standard on pedestrian vehicle conflicts, they call them, and reducing those. And so what you see here, and I apologize, that ends up being smaller on the screen than I thought it would, is in the last 10 years, we've had about, just under 10 years, we've had 52 vehicle pedestrian collisions. 26 of those happened between 5 p and 5 a, which obviously this time of year, 5 p.m. is daylight, 5 a.m. is dark. And so to be generous, I decided that it's probably more likely that we have those incidents during hours of darkness. So I'm just assuming that fully half of them did occur during the hours of darkness. We don't have the time of the year, we just have the time. So, and we got this information from our Vision Zero project, which was handy. I also talked to Chief Lugo, and we've only had 2 since January of 2024. One of those was minor, and as I mentioned, one was a little more damaging, but neither one was life-threatening. Go. And, oh, I think I might have skipped a slide there. Nope, didn't. Okay, so then, the research on what you do to improve pedestrian safety, both the NTSB and the Federal Highway Administration, they champion the idea of the 4 E's of pedestrian safety: engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency services. Engineering being, how do we build our streets? How do we build our sidewalks? How do we create opportunities to keep pedestrians and bicyclists away from cars? And we do that. We do that pretty heavily. Steve Hall's almost his entire job is searching out grants and other funding sources to be able to improve our streets. There's a number of programs both at the federal and state level that are aimed solely at safe streets to schools, complete streets. There's a lot of programs that are designed to make streets safer for all users, but especially those that aren't armored by a car. Enforcement, Chief Lugo informs me that they do enforcement when they see hazardous conditions. That, of course, is subjective, but each officer has the independence to decide, oh, you know, we probably need to talk to this person and get them to stop doing whatever it was that created the jeopardy. A lot of times it's younger people, you know, running across streets or doing stupid things, or not being able to judge speed and creating situations that those of us that have hurt ourselves a lot in our lives don't do anymore, but plus we're slow. Education, I'm going to skip that for a second because that's where I'd like to focus. And then emergency services, we have great emergency services. There's nothing we can do really to improve that. And that's not just our fire department. It's the compact we have with our surrounding agencies, so that if we have an emergency, whether it be a pedestrian incident or not, on one end of the city, and it's closer to Prince William or somebody else to respond to, their fire department will respond to it before ours will, so that they get the fastest response they can. That actually works really, really well, so not a lot we can do there. Education, that's something that we probably could do better, and that's the area that I would recommend we focus. Obviously, the idea is we don't want anybody to get hit by a car, whether they're on a bike or on foot or skateboard or the hoverboards we were promised 10 years ago. But we think that we could probably, there are toolkits that both the NTSB and the Federal Highway Association have online that allow you to, hey, here's how you do this. Here's the calendar of when you do your announcements and do your promotions to try and get people to understand that it's dangerous. You know, cars are big and heavy and they can hurt people. So our recommendation is that we invest our time in that and see if we can have an impact. We only had 2 in over a year, and so even if we reduced it by 1 because the sample size is 2, it's not going to be statistically significant. So we're not going to be able to do a study and see if we can reduce this just because the numbers are so low. But that's our recommendation. That being said, if you do want to pursue something else and have some kind of a program where we have some gear that we can give out, we can look at what that would cost as far as what's the best gear. There was discussion at the meeting about whether it's a vest, whether it's strobes or headlamps or whatever the case may be. And I just want to be careful, or I just want to be clear that getting the things, and if we set a budget, whether it be $5,000 or $10,000, is only part of the cost. So running a program also costs. There's going to be staff time involved in that. If it's going to be only for Manassas Park residents, then we're going to have to figure out a way to determine that it's only Manassas Park residents. Mother shows up at the community center and says, I have 3 kids under the age of 6, or whatever. Do we just trust them and give them, so we have to develop a program, and there's costs associated with that. So I just always want to be clear that it's more than just the stuff. It's the things that are needed to support the stuff. That being said, it's not a bad idea. I mean, I think the whole idea is to illustrate to our residents that we care and that we want to keep them safe. But from our research, it looks like possibly doing the education program is maybe more effective. So that is what I got for you.
Thank you. I think the education piece is a really important one, and I hope that we can embark on that. I did look up, October is Bicyclist and Pedestrian Awareness Month, so maybe we can ramp up to a big, huge
Perfect.
October thing.
Yes.
But comments, questions? Councilmember Seiberman?
I was thinking that we're putting in some safety lights here at City Center, and maybe around then when those are those getting installed? When those get installed too, I'll put those.
Are you talking about
Have
the
some
hot
type of
pedestrian
buffer.
lights?
Mhm.
Yeah, they poured concrete for them today.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
They what today?
Poured concrete for those
Oh,
posts
poured
today.
concrete.
For the hot
So
lights.
that
For the
would be
hot
lights. Perfect,
kind
good.
of a great kind of celebration and awareness as well, so.
Councilmember Pereira?
No comment, thank you.
I would like to see us pursue the Novak lighting situation with Manassas Drive and spend our time and our staff time on that. I know that Senator Danico Rome was willing to do something in this assembly, but we missed the date and we don't have the information together for her. But I think we should pursue that. That was something that the residents actually helped with getting that communication with Novak. We had 20 residents that actually wrote letters to them so that we could actually have the conversation. I think that's a better way to actually get the safety going for our residents, since they've been requesting it, especially on the west side. When the kids go to school, it's completely dark. And I think that will be much better time spent staff-wise. And if we can get the grants and if we can get the information, the information to Senator Rome so that she can help us with that, I think it's a better option than doing this.
Yeah, that is already on our work plan, so we're going to do that anyway. So we can do both, but absolutely.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Yessie, so thank you.
Yeah, great idea. Vice Mayor?
No questions. Thank you for doing the need assessment.
Of course, thank you.
And providing the cover letter. I mean, every year when we talk about budget, my goal is to see what we can give back to the community, right? It's not, we could have a robust plan to increase sidewalks and pedestrian crossings and crosswalks and lighting, right? That should be our long-term plan. But set aside from that is what else can we do extra to say, hey, we appreciate you being a resident here in Manassas Park, and let's give away these vests for your safety. Whoever wants to participate in it, come and grab one, This is, I don't think you were here when we did the voucher program, but I think they provided their driver license simple and didn't take much staff time to just, they just went to the community center, they handed them the voucher that was right there, they provided the license. So I don't see a significant amount of time being spent on this via staff time. So, I mean, this is just very minimal. It's not going to break the bank. $1,000, I don't think is going to hurt us. And I think we could pursue a campaign for education purposes, and we could pursue other means to protect pedestrians. But I think this is a great step to give back to our community, and I would appreciate if the governing body here supports it. But whatever we decide, but thank you for bringing this forward.
You're welcome. Yeah, my pleasure.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Mr. Cole. Next up is our fourth.
Well, I guess, did I get any direction here?
We have to make a motion to either adopt the recommendation as is or with the alternative.
Well, I don't think there is a recommendation. Oh,
I don't think there's
well,
a
that,
motion.
okay. This was an information item, but.
Oh, he has two recommendations, I guess.
So you're looking for guidance?
Well, do you want us to develop a program and come back to you with costs, or are we good with doing the education campaign, or, and it's not necessarily action, I just need to kind of know where to go
Right,
next.
so this is informal. So who is for the education, who is for the vests, and who is for both or nothing? So there's 4 options here. Education, vests, both, none. Okay, go slow this time, please. Okay. Sorry, is there a question?
Nope.
No, all right. Start with Hasib.
I mean, I think just to start off slowly, I would just do the vests.
Okay.
And then we try that as a pilot campaign, and then maybe roll that into a further, more elaborate campaign. But I would just start off with the vest for now.
Okay.
See what the community says.
Sounds good. Kevin?
My vote would be for education only, and my reason for that is that I think the data shows that, there's a really low number of incidents that take place over a 10-year time horizon. So I don't, it's not like I dislike the vest idea, I just don't see a data-driven need for it.
Okay,
I would be for the vest and the education.
both.
Both.
Okay,
I'll do the education.
education,
I'm okay with just doing the vest.
just the vest.
I think do nothing. I think we're going to be looking at our budget and our priorities, and I think we should assess and then prioritize based on that.
Okay. I'm gonna go with education, and that puts 3 in the education, 2 in vests, 1 in both, 1 in none.
We will launch a campaign and try to have it peak about October.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, fourth quarter budget appropriations. Yeah. The first staff recommendation that the governing body appropriate $35,361,604 to the city for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Next staff recommendation is that the governing body appropriate $15,208,385 to city schools for fourth quarter of fiscal year 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We are at our second public comment time. Is anyone left? Anyone want to make public comment? No? Excellent. City manager report.
Thank you. First thing I'm going to say on the budget, right now the budget calendar says that April 1st we'll have a presentation for you. I will say we had a very productive, well, my battery just died, but I think I remember. We had a very productive meeting this morning, and I think we're going to have I'll be very confident in a budget that we'll bring you, but it'll be the following meeting. It won't be April 1st. So the budget calendar is going to be adjusted a bit to make sure we're not, just to make sure we're accurate as we can be. So the other thing I want to tell you, and I am sorry that my...
Rate of 415.
415 would be the next one, yes. My computer died, but I have mixed emotions, mostly sad, but kind of happy too that you may have heard that Holly Ritchie, our library director, has decided to move on and try other adventures in her life.
No, I didn't know.
So that's why I wanted to share that with you. I did meet with the LSS director, Sue, who is running the process to find her replacement. They've already started soliciting applications or sourcing applications, but I believe, and Holly said she might jump on, so if you are, correct me if I'm wrong, Holly, but I think her last day is April 19th. Her number 2 will be the acting until the process is run and they've found Holly's replacement. But Holly, I of course have only been here 2 months, but looking back on some of the accomplishments, Holly was responsible for the move from the golf course. I didn't realize that the library was at the golf course to this building when it was built, and the leaving of the Prince William Consortium to begin with. And so she's been pivotal. This library, I get more compliments about our library than almost anything else in the city, and I have to think that is due in large part to the quality of service that Holly's provided. And so while I know she's got an adventurous spirit, she's gonna have a great time, I for one, am gonna miss her. So just FYI.
She will be missed.
Yeah, best wishes, Holly.
Yes.
As for the
Thank
budget,
you.
it's probably good not to have our budget presentation on April Fool's Day anyways.
That's probably a good fact. I think I did hear Holly speak up. Did I
Yeah,
hear you
Holly,
there?
are you there?
Yes, I am here.
We're gonna miss you. Good luck in your new.
Thank you. I'm gonna miss everyone. I've really enjoyed my time at Manassas Park. I am leaving to go and backpack the world, start in Europe. So that is my next steps. Just wanted to share that as well.
Wow.
Awesome.
Take me with you.
Fantastic, really. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Carl,
Yeah.
did you say you were gonna send out a revised budget calendar? I like to put those in my calendar. So
Sure.
I don't schedule holidays or vacations or something.
Yes, we will,
Okay.
because the budget session on the 8th will also be canceled for the same reason, so we'll send out a revised calendar.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Excellent. All right.
And I have one more thing.
Yeah.
I apologize for getting up and leaving a couple times earlier, but I wanted to tell you guys about something, and I could not find the email. I tried every wild card trick I could think of, and then it occurred to me, Oh, I actually got it in the mail. And so it's so rare, but Loudoun County is spearheading a group to deal with airport noise on runway 30 at Dulles. The FAA has required them to engage with every municipality or every government within a 10-mile radius of runway 30, which includes us. And while you might not think it's that big of a deal, the newest technology that's used in airplanes and for the approaching runways and when they're taking off, it's called Next Gen, is super, super accurate. And so what happens in the old days, pilots would fly the same flight path, but it could be a couple miles wide. And so you wouldn't have planes going over your house constantly. But now the envelope is so narrow that they're literally all flying within the same envelope, and it can get irritating for people. So while I don't know that we have a huge problem in our city now, I am going to participate on this group because I want to make sure that if they're turning out, that's the east, runway 30 is the east-west runway at Dulles on the sort of the west side. But when they're turning out and coming south, I don't want them to be going directly over, I just want to be there to make sure that whatever solutions they come up with noise, don't move the noise, at least don't move it to us. Second to that is there's going to be a kickoff for this group that is open to everyone. It's April 10th at 7:30. It will be virtual. Our firewall will not allow me to access their website right now. So I'll send that out to you once I have permission to get to it and let you guys know that if you want to jump on April 10th, then it's available to anyone. So.
Great.
And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Dean, if you're still awake, could you read us into closed meeting?
I am still awake, and I'd be happy to. I recommend the governing body go into closed meeting to consult with legal counsel retained by the governing body regarding a legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice by such legal counsel pursuant to paragraph 8 and 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. We are in closed break. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll convene in the conference room.